Hello, this is Bruno pelletier-bacquaert. I have this little chord study for you today. It's a blues in F, and it's pretty easy chord progression. Well, I'm going to play it for you, and then I'll just explain. So I'm going to turn my metronome on, something like that should do. And I have the clicks on 2 and 4. All right, so I'll play it and then we'll talk later. Okay, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's it. It's just a 12-bar blues. Pretty basic. So let me, I'll do it again in real time after we talk, but let me go over those chords first. So the first chord is an F9. What I would recommend is, instead of doing it like this, to use all 4 fingers and not bar across. The reason is, I do this if I want the first string to come through, that C note. But I don't want it here, so I would prefer to play it safe and just do it like this, and that way my first string is going to be muted in case I were to hit it accidentally. Okay, so that's one reason. The other reason is, since I'm going then to that B flat 13, I can leave the pinky where it already is and form my B flat chord around it. And then also, the interesting thing is it can give the illusion of playing cleaner than actually we are, because if I were taking my time to move to my B flat chord, see, that note is still ringing. There's no interruption in that note, right? So it ends up making things a little easier for you, I think. Now that B flat, so I recommend doing it like this. I bar at the 6th fret, and then I use my second finger on the D, and then that pinky on the G note. Now that is because I'm playing with my fingers. If I were to strum that chord, then I would do it like this, because in that case I would want that 5th string to be muted. So if I were playing the whole thing with a pick, I could strum my first chord and then my second chord like this, in which case then I would use all 4 fingers for the B flat. The first, the second, then the third on the D, and still the 4th on that G note. Okay, so either way, whether you play with a pick or if you play with your fingers, that might determine what fingering you're using for some of those chords. Okay, so we went from this to this, and then we went back to that same F9. Now C minor 7, just basic C minor 7. Now I have F7 flat 9, so that's we recognize that bottom shape, F, A, E flat, the 3-note voicing, and then that G flat, which is the flat 9. Now that chord could have been a C diminished. I could have played C minor 7, going to C diminished 7, and then resolve to my B flat dominant. But so you can keep that as an option. Either just play the F root, or put the 5th of the F chord in the bass. Same chord. But again, in this case, you're going to look at a C diminished 7th grip. Okay, the B flat, sometimes I do it like this with all 4 fingers, which is easy if I want to dampen some of those notes that I don't want, like the 5th and the 5th, the 5th and the 1st. But if you play with your fingers, you're welcome to bar, just like that. and then going to the B diminished 7th, and then I move up to my F9 again. However, on this arrangement, I put the 5th in the bass. Instead of having F in the bass, I have C in the bass, which is the 5th of my F chord. A good reason for doing this is that I was, remember, coming from the B flat, then going to B diminished, then I could use that C in the bass. So I have this little chromatic movement, which is, it's not a bad idea. Okay, so from B flat, B diminished, and then here's my F over C. Then I go to a D 7 flat 9. Now you'll recognize the diminished grip again. So this could be an A diminished, a C diminished, an E flat, or an F sharp diminished chord, depending on which one of those notes you think of as being the root, right? But in place of our D7. You probably already know that you can use a diminished 7th chord as a substitution for a dominant. Well, let me talk about this very quickly, but I'll probably make a different video on this. Let's assume I'm looking at this generic D7. Okay, if I were to raise the root of this D7, I would get this, which now I can look at as being an E flat diminished 7th chord, right? E flat diminished. But notice all the notes in common with the D7 I was coming from. There's basically only one note that has changed. So it basically means that when I'm playing this E flat diminished 7th chord, I'm still thinking of my D7, and I simply traded the root for the flat 9. Right? So that's why I can justify this chord as being still a D7 flat 9. Now that's one thing. The diminished 7th chord being entirely symmetrical, E flat or C diminished or F sharp diminished or A diminished is going to give me the same 4 notes. So I don't want to take too much time on this little video today, but I'll probably explain that in more depth if needed. So what I had, so the chord on this study, I have here this chord. So you can think of it as F sharp diminished 7th functioning as D7 flat 9. I hope you're with me, all right? So 2 beats only on that, and then I go to this chord, which is a D7 with a sharp 5. The plus 7 basically means it's a dominant chord of which the 5th is raised. And then that resolves itself, or I should say the sharp 5 resolves itself into the 3rd of my G minor chord, G minor 7. Then I go to a C13 with the option of playing that note. You can think of it as either flat 13 or sharp 5, same note, and then going to the F9 again. So if I were doing this little 2-5-1 in time, it would give me this 3-4-1, 2-3-4-1, 2-3-4, and 1-2 into the F. The reason one of the notes in that C13 is open, I think of that as an optional note. So I could have gone from G minor 7 directly into the C7 sharp 5, and the voice leading is still okay, and then resolve into that. Or do what I was doing, which is squeeze in. Since the tempo is not that fast, I can play, say, 2 beats of the 13th, and then 2 beats of the sharp 5, and then resolving again in half steps into the F9. And then the turnaround, so starting from the F9, I have this. Here's my same diminished chord, and then G minor, C, and then F. So here you're seeing several notes, some of the bass notes as optional. So it gives me a few different things. I could play what I just did here, which would be G minor 7 with the G root in the bass. And then I go down a half step. So that would really be a G flat 9. But that's the same, that would be the tritone substitution of that C7 sharp 5. And of course, I put a flat 9, so that would be this bass. So don't get confused here. You could use all those different bass notes as options. However, I would try to retain a chromatic descending line. So if it's on the 5th string, it gives me this. And if I descend chromatically on the 6th, on the bass string, the biggest string, it would be this. Okay, either way is interesting. And that's about it. That's about it. So let me play it again with the metronome, all in time. 1, 2, 3, 4. There you have it. So I hope you like that thing. We'll look at maybe a couple other studies in vlogs to come. Studies of blues, maybe we'll do one that's a little more sophisticated next time, and then maybe a few other tunes. If you like those kind of comping studies, because that's what we would call it, comping studies. So it's basically the kind of chords you would play while someone else is improvising. I have a lot of them available on my website. So they, well, for a small price, but you can purchase them. They're not expensive. Just go on my website. I'll put a link in the notes, and you'll see there's a whole bunch of standards, and maybe you'll like some of them. Okay, so that's it for today. Bye.